from, thank you. So we've got Steve Quinton, who's the temporary area manager for risk reduction. We've got Richard Stokes, who will be coming online in a moment, the culture and inclusion manager. We've got station manager Paul Smith, who's leading up in learning and development. We've got Chris Carruthers, who's a watch manager in Southmead. He's also working on a community engagement role within the community programme. We've got Karen Scheel from HR, and we've got Manuel Yescas, who is a fitness advisor. I believe that's everybody I've covered off. Anybody that I've missed out? I think that's everybody. A bit embarrassing if missing everybody else. And just to say, yeah, feel free to ask questions throughout again. And first off, I'm going to pass you on to Chief Fire Officer Simon Shilton.
Thanks, Louisa, and yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you first and foremost for joining this evening. I hope you'll find it useful and you get all of your information available to help you with your application, and we very much look forward to seeing you should you be successful when you start your training school later on this year, early part of next year. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit around our service area, a little bit about the service itself. If you've got any questions, as Louisa said, put them in the chat, please. And just a little bit around why I enjoy working for the Fire and Rescue Service. I think probably one of the first things is I have a huge privilege of leading an organisation that is absolutely full of fantastic people doing fantastic work every single day through their dedication, through their professionalism, through their pride, and also through their commitment. And their commitment in achieving our two main objectives, really. That's making our community safer, because that's what we want to do. We want to make our communities safer. We want to respond to them in their hour of need. And we'll talk to you a little bit this evening about how we do that. But also around having a strong and resilient organisation, and how we invest in all of our staff. So I have a huge privilege of being a Chief Fire Officer of a fantastic service, and that's what gets me up every day. That's what motivates me. You know, it's a career, if you're successful in your application, that I am sure you will not live to regret. It is full of opportunity. It is what you make it, and a huge amount of satisfaction in being able to serve the community. And that's my second point, really, around how I get my motivation. It's a bit of a cliche, I suppose, in that you get a lot of satisfaction out of helping and supporting the community, but genuinely, I get a huge amount of pride and satisfaction about leading a service that delivers the best possible services we can to all of our community and our visitors. So with that, the service area that we cover, on this screen here, you will see the map of our service area. We have 4 unitary authorities that we serve: the South Gloucester, Bristol, North Somerset, and Bath of North East Somerset. The makeup really of the service area is about 1.1 million population, but of course that fluctuates depending on the time of year. We have some seasonal increases, particularly in North Somerset area, where we might have some holiday makers, and of course we have a lot of tourist visitors to Bath area as well. We're predominantly a young city or a young service area. That's mainly due to the fact that we've got some very active and high-profile universities in our service area. And what generally happens is that when people come and study here, quite often they will find employment after their studies and settle in that employment, and then become residents of our local area. I'm a prime example of that. I've resettled in and around the Bristol area. So that makes us a young city per se, or a young service area. But we also have quite a number of deprived areas within our service area, and that in itself brings challenges to the Fire and Rescue Service. So you might think, well, what has deprivation got to do with the Fire and Rescue Service? Well, there are a number of things there, really. in terms of individual and community vulnerabilities, what puts somebody more at risk from being exposed from fire or other incidents, and in fact also as a result of that being exposed to possible injuries. The lifestyle and the behaviours, social economic background as well has an impact in relation to the vulnerability of an individual and their risk in terms of needing our services as they go about their day-to-day business. So we're quite diverse. We speak over 100 different languages in our service area, and we like to make sure that we reflect, and we are reflective of our community, so that we can better engage with our communities at all levels and all different areas of the service, so that we can continually build that relationship and deliver the best possible service that we can to those that need it the most. Thank you, Louisa.
Excuse me, 1 minute.
So again, a map that you'll be familiar with from the previous slide. This is our service area. This is what we'd call a heat map. So I'll just explain the different shadings, and it will be no surprise to you. The different shadings are where we have our highest area of operational activity, so incidents. And what we would do generally is try to match our own resources to that risk area across our whole boundary. So again, like I say, it'd be no surprise to you, the higher populated areas, Weston-super-Mare, Bristol, Bath, in Yate, down sort of the south areas of our service area, you can start to see a little bit of a heat indications showing operational activity, and we would match our resource to that risk. The map itself, the little circles you see on the map, indicate where our operational fire stations are. We have 11 whole time stations, either day crewing or whole time, and then we have 10 on-call stations as well. But we also have a number of other locations around our service area. In a moment, Steve will talk to you about protection and also prevention. And you can see on the map there, the yellow spot right in the centre, just south of where it says Bristol there, and that's where we base our dedicated prevention teams. But of course, the role of a firefighter is also contributing towards making our communities safer. So the activity on a day-to-day basis is focused around firefighters undertaking prevention work as well. And also protection. So protection work, again, Steve will talk to you a little bit about that in a moment, but the red areas that you see on the map there, where we locate our resources that support our protection activity. And of course, we also want to build a resilient service. So the blue dots on our mapping area there also indicate where we will have other resources to deal with the vast amount of a diverse work that we undertake as a fire and rescue service. So with that, what I will do now is, next slide please, Louisa. I will hand over to Area Manager Steve Quinton, who will talk you through activity under prevention and protection. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, boss. Good evening or good afternoon, everybody. Yes, as the Chief, as Simon has said there, I'm currently responsible for the prevention and protection function of Avon Fire and Rescue Service. And someone asked, what is that? And I think when you consider our responsibilities around prevention, protection and response, as Simon has said, we have a responsibility to keep our communities safe. And whilst we also want to ensure our service is stronger, it's about keeping our communities safer. And our firefighters, potentially yourselves here, are real key assets in ensuring that we can keep people safe. I'll focus on prevention first. Now, prevention is all around home fire safety visits and education in its simplistic form. So our firefighters will carry out home fire safety visits. And these are interventions where they will be going into people's homes. And these homes are to people that are deemed vulnerable. So the likes of myself, or a number of us on this call, wouldn't receive a home fire safety visit because we quite rightly can go and get our own, and we're generally not vulnerable and we're generally in good health. However, we identify through various means vulnerable people, and we then ask our firefighters, as part of their day-to-day work, and this will be what you will be doing day to day alongside your training and your operational response, we'll ask you to go into people's homes, and we'll ask you effectively to carry out a risk assessment or a look into their homes and provide fire safety advice. Now, that fire safety advice can be around cooking safety, smoking safety, electrical safety. You could focus on hoarding. Somebody may have a large amount of property, of items in their property, which we call hoarding. And that can actually pose a risk to that individual and obviously to others around. So we will give you education, we will give you training on how to identify where somebody is actually at risk due to that hoarding and what you then need to do to refer those people. We'll give you training on safeguarding. There may be some people that actually may be vulnerable through to isolation or mental health. And part of your home fire safety visit will be building a rapport with those individuals, understanding what their needs are, fitting smoke detectors. Yes, we fit smoke detectors. You may provide a lockable letterbox if somebody is at threat of arson. You may provide some fire retardant bedding for somebody that smokes in bed. You may also fit a deaf alarm, which is an alarm specifically for people of hard of hearing. So you'll be responsible for carrying out those visits and then feeding that information back into us as a central team, who then can provide support to you and that individual with much more interventions and much more higher level intervention that may involve other agencies. So you then start working together, and the central team certainly does. You'll also be part of the other area of prevention, which is around educational visits. We all know, and I'm sure enough of you here, when you were at school, you had a fire engine come and a fire appliance come and visit your school. So we now have a dedicated series of packages from all the different ages, all the way up through to early 20s, where we ask our firefighters, again, once they've received some training, to help us deliver those education packages. Because it's very much the view that, as you know, that if we are able to educate the young and keep educating through their life, and as they become older, it becomes second nature and it becomes part of their routine. So our firefighters, our biggest asset, are very key in helping us deliver those prevention activities. And yes, we have targets that we set ourselves that we want to achieve. And that's something that I'm responsible for and reporting into the organization to ensure that we are actually showing how we are adding value, how we are making our community safer, because clearly other people will be looking at us as a fire and rescue service to make sure we're doing our jobs to the best we can. The other area is protection. And by all means, if you have any questions around any of these subjects, then please put them in the chat and I'll happily write replies to you. The other area is protection. You will have all seen, I'm sure, the tragic events of Grenfell back in 2017. And that focused on fire protection and fire safety in buildings now, which is slightly different to the prevention, because this is about the protection of buildings, which means that ultimately those people will be protected. So we have a responsibility to go and carry out fire safety inspections in all types of businesses and blocks of flats and the common areas of blocks of flats. So I have a dedicated team of around 24 officers that will carry out high-level inspections at those premises that are deemed highest risk. However, again, as firefighters, you will be responsible for carrying out a number of low-level fire safety inspections. So to some of those premises that aren't deemed particularly high risk, but clearly have a responsibility to their employees and members of the public to still be safe. So we will ask our firefighters to go and carry out some low-level operational fire safety checks. And again, we will provide you with training with that. And we've now started more regular ongoing training with all of our operational crews. And you will receive that training throughout your life and time, however long it will be within the fire service. And that's really important because through this, we keep people safe and, again, vulnerable people safe in those buildings. And as I say, you will have seen all the news articles around Grenfell and the changes that are happening since there. So that's the two areas of prevention and protection. And I suppose if I can also do what the chief said, what gets me going and why I enjoy working for the Fire and Rescue Service. Yes, I am passionate about prevention and protection. I really do believe we change and save people's lives by the work that we do. And I do make a difference, or my team certainly, without taking their thunder, my teams certainly make a difference day in, day out to the members of the public. And we see that through helping people through clear their houses, help them with hoarding, and then we have people that then live longer and happier lives. That makes a difference to me, and that's what gets me going, and has done for the last 25 years. But also the fire service is a fantastic career. I've been all up and down the country, different parts of the world related to the fire service. And last year I spent a couple of mornings walking around outside the G7 leaders' bedrooms at 4 o'clock in the morning down in Cornwall, which I never thought I would do. It's a varied job. Every day is a different day. Every day can be a challenge as well, but I really do echo what the chief has said around we've got some fantastic people in our organization, and we are one big family, and you will be welcomed into our one family where we're all different, which makes us quite unique, but that's what we need as a service. Different people, different ideas that are after that one goal. So I could go on for hours, and everybody that knows me knows I could go on for hours, but I'll stop there and wish you good luck in the process. And if there are any questions, then please put them in the chat and I'll type away and respond to them. Thank you, boss.
Thanks, Steve. Next slide, please. So the other area we keep our communities safe. I spoke about prevention and protection. Steve's referenced there, prevention and protection is the response side of our organisation. And that's probably the one that is most popular with people, because you'd see the fire engines and resources out and about. You'll see them on telly dealing with operational incidents. That's another area where we aim to keep our communities safe through the speed and weight of our attack when they do need us, or when they're having the worst day of their lives, that we're able to be able to respond to that. How do we do that? Well, I mentioned in our risk map, if you like, our heat map around how we position all of our appliances and all our resources. I did say that we had 21 operational fire stations. On those 21 operational fire stations, we have 34 pumping appliances. We have a number of senior managers that also respond, doing day-to-day work that respond from their office space or their alternative work location to support the whole management of an incident. Based on our operational fire stations, you can see there that we have 398 whole-time operational fire stations on those stations, and just over 200 on-call firefighters. An on-call firefighter is someone who either lives or works in their local community. They would be responding on a pager, and they'd be recording to respond to their local station with the same training, the same equipment, and respond to their local community's needs, and quite often much wider than that across the service as well. But to support all of that, we also have quite a number of fire control staff. And fire control is an area where that receives the 999 call. It'll be the first point of call when someone's having the worst day of their life. And they're absolutely critical to ensuring that we get the right resources to the right place at the right time, but also absolutely integral to that whole resolution of that incident and reaching that resolution of that incident. They interact with our operational firefighters on a day-to-day basis. They support requests. As I said, they talk with other agencies, they reassure, and they provide that additional resilience and capability that is absolutely vital, that's needed. Without them, we won't be able to do what we do today. And the other part of our service is around resilient and having a resilient service. And of course, to back all of that up, we have some dedicated teams, which you may well in your careers have an opportunity to join. So we have national operational guidance, which is around procedures to deal with operational incidents and incident types. Of course, what we want to do is continually learn and make sure that we have a good assurance process, learning from operational incidents and continually improving. So our operational assurance and debriefing staff would also do that. And we also have an operational risk intelligence team, which again deal with new information, new risk, to develop policy, to develop procedure, and supply good information to operational fire stations and firefighters. And we have a number of national resilience assets. National resilience assets, what they are, that we host them locally, we staff them locally. They're specialist appliances for a particular type of response criteria, but they're also available to region and also national incidents. And quite regularly, we would respond on a regional and national level with those assets themselves. Next slide, please, Louisa. So the other side of our organisation and our corporate or service objectives, I've talked quite a lot there about making our communities safer, doing that through prevention, protection, response, and having a resilient service. But our other objective is making our organisation stronger, and we do that in two ways. We do that by investing in our staff, but from this perspective, investing in our organisation. And we have a huge transformation programme which is looking at and visiting all of our policy, all of our procedure, investing IT infrastructure, investing in digitising our fire grounds, and making sure that our firefighters have the best possible up-to-date information at their fingertips using digital technology. And that's a huge investment for us as a service, but certainly helps to keep our communities safer. That helps to build a stronger organisation as well. Next slide, please, Lisa. So what do you get in return for being a firefighter? Well, these are the pay rates that you can see there, entry level. And if you'd progress through your career, and if you're interested in opportunities for career progression and promotion, these are the current pay scales that attach to each of those roles there. These are nationally agreed pay structures. The only slight difference to these would be London, where they have a London weighting, and there are plenty of opportunities for you to reach your aspirations should you wish to further your career, or you may just wish to stay at firefighter and be, excellent at your role as a firefighter, which is equally perfectly reasonable to do that. The nationally agreed salary goes up to area manager level. From chief officer, deputy chief officer, and assistant chief officer, that is pay scale is set locally, and the deputy chief and other officers get a percentage salary of the chief officer's salary. So that's just not the area manager salary. There is not the ceiling. It can go beyond that depending on what your career aspirations are. So you can see from there, you definitely have a career path from the day one of your entry into the service. Next slide, please, Louisa. So what do we give you, if you like, in your career? Well, one thing that I can guarantee is we'll continue to invest in you as an individual from the very first day, giving you the skills, the training, the equipment, and the knowledge that you need to be the best that you can be as an operational firefighter. We give those skills to ensure that we have the right person in the right place with the right skills at the right time, and that varies depending on your work location in terms of the scope of those skills, but everyone is trained as an operational firefighter. We have plenty of promotion opportunities and promotion pathways which are easily identifiable to you when you join the service, and that's another area where we invest in you. We have a very active health, welfare, well-being and fitness team as well. And once again, that team are there to support you, keep you safe in the workplace by developing policy and procedure, but also looking after your mental health and well-being. And you'll talk to Manuela shortly with regards to your physical fitness as well. We have a number of other areas where you can get involved in the service itself and drive in the direction of the service. We have a very active staff engagement network. We often have working groups that are staffed by operational staff, so that as an end user, you can have your say and your influence on the next generation of fire appliances, the next generation of equipment, the way that we do things, our policy and a procedure. So you are actively involved in building a fire and rescue service for the future and for that continual improvement. So with that, I will wish you well in your application, and I look forward to seeing you when you start your training school, and I think it's in January. So good luck, everybody, and thank you.
I'm just going to pass over to Richard Stokes, Diversity and Culture Manager.
Thank you, Louise. Apologies, Richard, I didn't introduce you.
Sorry, no problem at all. Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Stokes, Culture and Inclusion Manager here at Avon Fire and Rescue Service. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my department and what we do in the organisation. As you've heard tonight, we work to two strategic objectives: keeping our community safer and organisation stronger. DICE is plays a pivotal role in supporting the achievement of those aims. If I start off with keeping the organisation stronger, part of my work is, or the main part of my work is to ensure that people in the organisation are treated fairly, without discrimination, removing any barriers to bringing your whole self to work so that you can obviously perform and do the job that we are paid to do. This also stems over into the way we recruit as well. And as part of this recruitment campaign, we especially contact people in the community that are underrepresented in our organisation. And currently, the underrepresentation cuts across women, Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, disability, and LGBTQ+. So a lot of my work really is about encouraging people from the community, particularly from those groups, to come and join us to obviously diversify the organisation and obviously make it a better place to work. The other areas of my work include policy, training, community engagement, and ensuring that we upskill our organisation in terms of how we behave with each other. That then should transfer to how we behave with our communities and the general public, especially when we go out and engage with them, whether it be in an emergency or in terms of community engagement initiatives. In terms of our community engagement program, we take part in many different events in local community. We also cover some big events such as the Pride marches, which we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, bar the last 2 years because of coronavirus. This year we'll be doing our Pride March, or playing our part in the Pride March, which is, I believe, on the 9th of July. So if you're around in Bristol at the time, come and join us. We'll have a fire truck down there, a stand, and we'll be generally joining the festivities, and be most welcome to be there. The other big event in Bristol that we also attend annually is the St. Paul's Carnival. Last time we attended was 2019. Again, we engaged with the community. It was a great event. Anybody who's been there before will know how good it is. Lots of music, lots of vibes, but also a chance to talk, closer to the general public. Explain that obviously the fire and rescue service is not just about firefighting or saving people. There is other sides to it as well, especially in the areas that I work in corporate community. In corporate services. So my work really does stem broadly across the whole of the organisation, and certainly, if any of you do sort of get through the application stage and into training, you will see me come and do a presentation in the training school where I'll go into a little bit more detail about the work that we do and how you could get involved in that. The last thing I want to mention really is about our cultural journey. The organisation is going through a huge transformation process at the moment, following a number of inspections, which really indicated that we needed to improve the service in many different areas, especially around people. So we've recently run a culture survey, which has highlighted a number of key areas that we need to work on to improve the organisation and make it a better place to work. And as I say, if you do become successful in your application to join us, there's plenty of opportunity to get involved in helping evolve the community the organisation to reflect our communities. If there's any questions that you have, please you can ask now or at the end of the presentation. Quite glad to answer that. If you're not comfortable in asking questions, there is an email that you can contact me on, and I'm quite welcome to answer any queries you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I wonder if you could just quickly cover off the opportunities within sort of the Stepping Up programme, Springboard, and those particular training opportunities.
Sure. Yeah, I did miss out. I apologise. So part of our I guess developing our staff and encouraging the leaders for tomorrow, we have a number of programs, development programs, Louise mentioned a couple of those there: Spring Forward, Springboard, Navigator, and the Stepping Up program, which is the last one. Stepping Up program is an external leadership development program run by Bristol City Council, now in its 4th or 5th iteration. I've actually attended and passed the course myself, and it certainly did help me in terms of
recording in progress.
Taking on a leadership role. And certainly that's something that we continue to encourage across the organisation, and we are ambassadors on that course as well. So yes, just part of those other opportunities that you will be able to sort of tap into if and when you do end up joining us.
Thank you, Rich. And now I'm going to hand over to Karen Shield, the head of HR.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that you're still with me and still listening in. So I know there's an awful lot of information available on the Yes You Can website. So what I'm going to try and do is not repeat the information that is already available to you, but to try and give you some tips that hopefully will help you over the next few months. So you'll be aware that the registration opens on the 3rd of May, which is just after the bank holiday, and it closes on the 9th of May. So what I would say is, take some time to do the registration. It only takes about 15 minutes, but be honest when you go through the application process. Think about whether this really is the job for you. There will be a questionnaire in there as part of the eligibility, just really designed to get you thinking. You've heard quite a lot about the role today, and some of it may not surprise you. Some of you may already have done quite a lot of research, but the operational part of the role is the thing that most people know about. They may not be as familiar with the prevention and protection work. So that might be something that you're really keen on, or actually for some of you that you might think that that isn't part of the role that is as attractive to you. So some of the eligibility stuff will take you through the different parts of the role and get you thinking as to whether this is genuinely the job for you. It also talks about things like shift work. Most of our firefighters really love working shifts, but it isn't for everyone. So it will talk you through some of those things. It will also talk to you around maybe sometimes you might not be able to pre-book your holidays. You might have those allocated to you. So it just gets you thinking about what the role is like in reality. So the registration process only takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Just be careful that you fill in, for example, your email address correctly. Quite often people make mistakes at that stage, and then sometimes they won't get the email alerts for all of the future stages of the process. So just take care when you're filling in that initial registration form. The second part of the process is around the online tests. So again, all of the information is on the website, and there's some practice tests that you can use on there to get familiar with, just to help you in preparing for those tests. You can do them online. So if any of you are going away on holiday over the next couple of months, all of the initial stages of the process are online. You can access them on a laptop or on a tablet. Unfortunately, they're not compatible with a smartphone, mainly because of the amount of information and text on the screen. It's quite difficult actually for you to be able to read that and then, for example, select the correct multiple choice option. So we would say to you that try and find a quiet area where you can do those tests uninterrupted. The first couple of tests aren't timed, so you've got all of the time in the world to be able to sit and really think and give it some careful consideration. So things like the behavioural styles and situational judgment questionnaire, there's things that behavioural styles, it's things like maybe, whether you like following rules and instructions, and if that's something that you're really not keen on, maybe firefighting isn't the job for you. It's whether you like working as part of a team or whether you prefer to work on your own. And all of those things are talking you through the types of behaviours and styles which are more suited to being a firefighter or not. And also situational judgment, the multiple choice, and it's around different scenarios with different options as to what would you do in that situation. So like I said, those two aspects of the test aren't timed, but I would just encourage you to do it in a really quiet area. So it's probably not one to to do late at night when you've had a few drinks or on the bus or on the way into work. So just try and make sure that you're able to concentrate, because once you've selected your option, you're not able to then go back and redo that questionnaire. Your answers are locked in, and that could be whether you pass or fail. So just take some time to do those in a quiet area. If you pass those two stages of the test, you will move on to the online ability tests, and that's maths and English, and people always get a bit fearful of the maths, but it's not anything to be afraid of, and I would just practice in advance. And there's lots of multiple choice ability tests online that you can just Google and do some practice beforehand. But maths is part of the firefighting role in terms of some of the basic calculations they need to do, and for example in terms of breathing apparatus, in terms of being able to calculate how much air you've got available to you if you were going into an operational incident. So there are some fairly basic mathematical questionnaires, and they are all multiple choice, but again you just need to sort of double check and make sure you give time to those. They are both timed, those tests, so you do need to be able to work under a little bit of pressure. So again, it might be worth sort of practicing that in advance to be able to improve the way that you can speed read and select things at speed to help you with preparing for those tests. In terms of the application form, so if you pass the ability test, you go onto an online application form. In terms of the tips for the application form, I can cover those in a moment, but it's around 1,500 words, and I would just say really make sure that you use all of the words that are available to you, because sometimes we have application forms in where only a couple of hundred words have been used, and it's not really going to give us enough information to be able to fairly and accurately assess your application form at that stage. I know I'm conscious of lots of things coming into the chat, so I may need to pick some of these up later on. I think there's probably quite a few questions coming through, so forgive me, I'll make sure that I answer all of those later on as we go through. All of these stages we will be emailing you to tell you whether you've been successful or not. So again, please just check your spam and your trash for your emails, because quite often people say that they miss emails and then they've maybe missed a deadline for that part of the process. So just double check your email. I would say every day, just check your trash folder just to make sure that you don't miss anything, and also don't leave everything to the last minute. So whilst there are deadlines on the test, sometimes people experience IT problems. I know I was experiencing IT problems getting into the meeting tonight and was panicking a little bit. So I know that every year we get people who have maybe missed the deadlines because they were experiencing IT issues. So just try and make sure that you give plenty of time to be able to meet the key deadlines, because we don't give any exceptions to those deadlines. They are quite strictly applied to make sure that we're fair to everybody throughout the process. Could I have the next slide, please, Louisa? So I'll talk in a moment about the fitness and strength test, because Manuel is going to mainly cover that in detail for you. We may also do speed interviews, and we're going to debate as to whether or not we do those depending on how many applicants we get. We normally have around about 1,000 applications, and obviously we need to sort of whittle those down as we go through the process. So depending on how many people we've got left in the process at this stage, we may do a speed interview, and it'll be a quick 10-minute interview with deciding whether to do that online. We're trying to do as many parts of the process online as possible, because we recognise that you're all busy, probably all got jobs, families, other commitments, and so we're trying to make it as accessible as possible to you and minimise the number of times that you actually need to come in and visit our venues. So keep an eye out for that. It will be literally a 10-minute conversation with either myself or one of my team, or a member of our operational team, just to talk you through what's interested you in being a firefighter, what you know maybe about the community or the role, and it'll be a quick, quite an informal interview before we move on to the practical physical tests, and then the more formal interview, and then we move through into job offers and firefighter training, which starts in February next year through to the 12th of May. Can I have the next slide, please, Louisa? So in terms of the application form top tips, I've mentioned before about the number of words that are available to you. This is a really competitive stage of the process. We normally still have at least 500 or 600 people in the process at the application form stage. And you can start now, so it's something that's maybe worth thinking about. The application form covers things like working well as a team, having good communication skills, and all of the things that you'll see on the slide in front of you. So make sure that you maybe start to think of the best examples that you could use against each of those topics. And rather than just saying, I work really well as a team, I'm a great team player, maybe think of an example or a couple of different examples of when you've done that. So it could be either in your current employment, previous employment, at school or college, in football or rugby team or something like that. Just trying to think of real examples of when you've demonstrated that skill, rather than just making a statement without any supporting evidence to it. Don't focus on some of the skills that are tested in other stages. Quite often we get people in their application form that talk a lot about their fitness and strength, and talk a lot about playing football and going to the gym. Obviously that's a really, really important part of the process, but that will be tested as part of the physical fitness and physical test element. So I wouldn't waste too many words in your application form talking about your physical strength, because that will be tested in a separate stage of the process. And also really think about community work. You would have heard both the Chief and also Steve talking to you earlier about how community is so important to us, and also Rich was saying about why it's so important that we represent the communities that we serve. So if you don't already do anything within the community, it might be something that's worth starting. One, because I think you'll find it really rewarding and you'll get a lot of benefit from it, but it also really does help you in this process to be able to demonstrate that you are working in the community. And it doesn't have to be something really significant. Obviously, if you can give up some of your time and work as a volunteer or do something you're really passionate about, then that's fantastic. But it could be something as small as helping a neighbour, maybe a neighbour who's particularly vulnerable. I think what we all saw in the pandemic is we all became, I think, far more community spirited than maybe we were before. And I think it's just showing that you've got that care and that compassion and that empathy for people in the community. So any examples you can think of where you've helped out in the community would be really, really valuable to use in your application form. And if you're not already doing something, that's maybe something you can take away from tonight to think about something that you feel really passionate about that you would like to get involved in. You've got plenty of time before the application form stage to get really involved and active in your community. Could I have the next slide, please? This is around our mission, which is improving public safety, our vision, providing the highest standard, and our values, which is around being respectful, honest, ambitious, inclusive, respectful, and transparent. So our values are really, really important to us. It's it's easy. I think both the Chief and Steve were talking earlier about some of the training that we give in the service, which is exemplary. And we can train a lot of the technical skills. So you'll be going on a 12-week training school, and you'll learn all of the operational skills and some of the things that Steve was talking about in terms of some education stuff around prevention and protection, around safeguarding, etc. But in terms of your behaviours and your attitudes and your values, they're more embedded and they're quite difficult to train and to change. So these are things that you can really start thinking about now in terms of, are your personal values similar to our values? And then what examples do you have of where you've demonstrated those values? So be honest in your application form, because we will ask you questions if you get through to the either speed interview or the formal interview stage. So if you've made something up, we'll probably find it out at a later stage. But I'm sure you've all got plenty of examples that you could use. So try and think of recent examples, because they're normally fresh in your mind. And you can then sort of really talk them through fully and also write about them within your application form. So it's around things like being courageous. It's about moral courage. So it's not so much about the courage that every firefighter has in terms of going to an operational incident. It can be quite scary, particularly for the first few times when people get involved. And obviously that is courageous, but we're not expecting people to be able to give examples of that. But it might be about moral courage. So sometimes it might be that it's can be quite difficult sometimes to stand up for what is right, when maybe you're a lone voice in a group. And so sometimes it's those kind of examples which are really important to us, because it's not just about standing up for what's right within the organisation, it's also standing up for what's right within the community and helping and supporting some of the vulnerable people within our community. So any of those examples that you can think of, the same being honest, sometimes it's owning up to our mistakes. We all make mistakes, and sometimes the best way that we learn is from those. So being honest is something that's really, really important. So again, any examples that you can think of, the time maybe within the workplace where you've made a mistake, you've had to own up to it, or you've had to be honest with a customer, or with a member of the community if you're dealing with something that's particularly difficult, and you've had to be really open and honest with them. So all of the values, there's quite a lot of information on the website around our values, but just have a think and start maybe asking friends, family, colleagues of what examples you could potentially use, because sometimes we're not very good at selling ourselves, and sometimes some of your friends or families might come up with some examples for you that you may not have thought about. So when you get to the interview stage, we obviously drill down and go through those in a bit more detail. So the interview lasts for about an hour, and it will be a panel of 2 people. So I think the most important thing, and I know it's easy for me to say, is to try and make sure that you relax within the interview. We will do everything that we can to try and make you as relaxed as possible and to do the best that you possibly can do. What I was supposed to say right at the beginning of my presentation was what I liked about working for the service. And I think for me, I've recruited every single firefighter that has joined the service in the last 15 years that I worked here. So I hope that I will meet all of you throughout the process. I hope that I will see many of you at training school, and then I'll also help you be promoted throughout your career in the fire service. So for me, I think my job is to make sure that you can achieve your best throughout all of this process. So, and my team feel the same. So when we're at the interview panel, we're willing you to do your absolute best. We will help as much as possible, and we will try and relax you. And I think it's about using a range of examples, so trying maybe not to focus just on one area. So sometimes if somebody's particularly keen on sport, all of their examples in the interview may be focused on sport, football, rugby, whereas actually sometimes we're looking for something a bit more diversity, so where you've got a range of different examples in different contexts, and maybe just try and have a think about a range of examples from the workplace, from your personal life, from volunteering or working in the community. And if you don't have an example, rather than thinking you've got to make one up, and maybe think about how you would respond. So you can just be really honest and say, I haven't come across that before, but this is what I would do in that situation. And sometimes a tip that quite often people suggest to use in interviews is what they call the STAR acronym, which is thinking of the situation and what you actually did, what the task was, what action you took, and what the result was. That sometimes helps people to be able to sort of in their head to formulate their response. And also to take some time when we ask you a question in the interview, don't feel that you've got to respond immediately. Maybe just take a few seconds to think of the best example. And you can always bring in not pages and pages. Sometimes I have people come in with massive folders of evidence, which isn't really helpful within an interview, but bring in a page of sort of just some bullet points that might just help you if you think you're going to maybe freeze in an interview, particularly if you haven't had an interview for some time. Sometimes it just really helps to have a few notes with you. But please, we will do our absolute best to help you through the process. I wish you all the very, very best. I hope to see you later on as we go through the process over the next few months. And now I'm going to pass you on, I think, to Manuel, who's going to talk to you about the fitness aspects of the role.
Thanks, Karen. There's a few questions for you, as you'd probably expect, throughout. So just I'll leave you to kind of answer those within the comments. If there's anything sort of like that's been asked on a few times, we might just cover that off at the end. But thanks very much. So going over to you, Manuel.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So Manuel, lead the station final advisor here for Avon Fire and Rescue Service. I'm here just to talk about how the fitness tests are going to look like. I'll go through a few tips that I give everyone to prepare for them, and also just so you know what to expect on that day, so there's no surprises. Because of all the parts and all the stages that you probably need to go through during the recruitment, I think the fitness test is the one that you can prepare the most for it, because it's always the same. We don't change it much. It's normally the same test, and you know it straight away. You got time to prepare for it. You know, there is no excuse here. If you do the work, you will pass the test. So first of all, I would recommend to everyone to find your starting point. So everyone is built differently. Maybe some of us come from a different background. We've been playing more like, I don't know, like team sports, but we haven't been doing that much weights or going to the gym, lifting weights and such. So finding your starting point is key here. So either that being on your fitness, so your cardiovascular capacity, or your strength levels. So once you gather your starting point, then you can start preparing for it. So I'll talk about the specific tests in a minute anyway, but we're gonna have like 3 main tests. The first one is gonna be shoulder press with a barbell. Then we got a lat pull down, and lastly we got a Cooper test, which is like a running test where we're gonna use that to find out your aerobic capacity. So first of all, you can start by building up your strength endurance gradually over time. So there are a few training plans available that you can find in our website. So if you have no idea where to start, probably a good idea to go there and just, you know, download one of the plans there and start from week 1. I think there is a 10-week program, so it's pretty much works pretty well looking at the time frame. So you can start like right away next week, and probably you'll finish the program just about before doing the fitness test. Everything is explained on that program, so I'm not gonna like waste much time explaining that. If you got any questions, obviously we'll be available to answer them later on. Also, understand exactly what is required for each test and practice them under test conditions. What I mean by that is like some people turn up on the day and they never done the test before, which is surprisingly, because it's like there are tests that you could do on your own. Some of them requires like some equipment that you can find on any regular gym. So please try the test, even if you think that you're gonna pass them, just to make sure that you understand the standards. We'll talk about the shoulder press later, and there are a few key points there that you need to like meet in order to pass the test. So if you never tried it, it's a movement that you've never done before, it might be worth going to a gym, give it a go, maybe find someone that has done that test before or that trains regularly and can give you a few pointers. Yes, there are a number of exercises available on our website that will help you progress from 35 kilos shoulder press and 60 kilos lat pull down. That's within the program. You will see that we also go like, kind of like a development program where you start, we assume that you start with a very minimal level of strength, and we give you like different exercise that if you train this exercise and you manage to complete a certain amount of reps, then you can progress on to the next exercise. So we'll give you like kind of like a program that you can follow, even if you never trained before. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll be able to do 35 kilos. Do not try to turn up on the day without trying the test again. I know that I repeat myself here, but I hate when that happens, like having someone turning up on the day and because they never tried before failing the test, it's just not worth it really. I would recommend, if you don't have access to a gym, that at least to get a couple of dumbbells. So the running test, you can prepare without any equipment. Obviously, you can go just outdoors and do some running. That's obvious. But for the shoulder press, you're gonna need to do you need some resistance. And also the body weight is a good option for a certain amount of time, and especially if you're a beginner, over time, you're gonna need to add some weights. So if you can, I'm not saying that you needed to get it right away, but at some point, try to get a couple of dumbbells or a barbell, something like that that's gonna allow you to actually like lift some weight overhead for the strict press. As I mentioned before, if you don't have access to those, you can start with body weight exercise. We got things like press ups, you can do dips, you can do chin ups, you could do dips on a chair. So there are many things that you could do there. That's for the strength. For the cardiovascular capacity test, which is the Cooper test, we're going to be measuring your VO2 max. So your VO2 max is just basically a number that tells us how fit you are aerobically speaking. So how well your body processes the oxygen as a source of energy. So that's going to depend on a series of factors. One of them being your body weight and your gender. And the other one is going to be how fast you run. So the Cooper test, just so you know, is 2.4 kilometers run or 1.5 miles run. We're going to do it at Yale. I don't know if you know it, but at Yale there is a track field there. So it's probably a good idea to go there and maybe try to do the test on your own there. Go there, speak to the owners, speak to the people that normally trains there, and maybe get to try that test there. So it will be 6 laps to a 400-meter like track field and a little bit more. So that would be roughly like 2.4 kilometers. So we'll take the time that takes you to run the 2.4 kilometers. We'll take your body weight, using your gender as well. We're going to estimate your VO2 max. If that number comes out as 42.3 or higher, then you pass the test. Okay, so for every person, as you can see, it's going to be different. So I cannot tell that everyone has to run the test under like 12 minutes, because for some people it might be enough to do 12:30. For some people might need to do it under 10. So go to the website. There is an Excel file that you could download on your phone or your laptop, and then you can pop a few numbers there. So you can like do a few tryouts, try different body weights, try different times, and see what the result comes out as. Okay, so just remember 42.3 or higher. Okay. And lastly, I also recommend, like, if you're not experienced, if you haven't trained before, it might be hard to do that if you've never done it before. So it's always a good idea if you got a friend or someone that, you know, has experience, or even that has applied before to this, even a firefighter could help you with this. It might be a good idea just to, like, you know, meet up with them, do some training with them, just go through the techniques, or even get help from a professional. So maybe like a personal trainer, like book a couple of sessions with a personal trainer, explain to them what the test is, so they can give you a few tips. Because again, I can give you general tips for everyone, but every person is going to be slightly different. So it's always worth to get some like personalized tips here. So moving on to the next slide, Luisa, we're going to talk now about the specifics of every movement, if that's okay. Okay, so this is an example of the lat pull down. On this picture, you can see that you'll be on a sitting position. It could be sitting on a bench or a chair or even on the floor. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is like it's an upper body test where we're testing the strength of your lat muscles and your biceps and grip strength. So we'll be using a rope, as you can see on that picture. Okay, we won't use like the regular straight barbell that you can see on your gym. We'll use the rope, the one that you use for tricep extension. And you will be starting like on the picture with your arms fully extended. From that position, we'll ask you to pull the weight down, which is going to be 60 kilos, and bring the hands to your chest. Okay. After doing that, we'll tell you to release. So you will extend your arms, and then that will be the end of the test. So we'll do 60 kilos for 1 rep. As soon as you finish that, we're going to take half of that weight off. So we'll go roughly 28 kilos, 30 kilos, and we'll ask you to do 24 to 26 reps at that weight. Okay. So as you see, 24 to 26, we got a bit of a wiggle room there. So the minimum would be 24, and we don't need you to do more than 26. So yeah, just be ready for it. Normally, I tend to see that if people has enough strength to pull 60 kilos once, they tend to be okay doing 24, 26 reps with half of that weight. Nonetheless, it might be worth just trying it and practicing. And one thing that you need to bear in mind that, you know, it has happened before. People go to the gym and they try the lat pull down machine, and every piece of equipment is slightly different. There are, you know, some multi-power stations, they might have like 1, 2 wheels. So the pulley system changes slightly. So what you think that is 60 kilos on like the lat pull down machine that you've been training, it might not be the 60 kilos that you're gonna be lifting on our lat pull down machine, okay? So always try to train heavier than what you're doing at your gym, just in case. Because on the day you'll be tested for 60 kilos. And what I mean by that is like we will basically calibrate the lat pull down machine. So when you pull, you're actually lifting 60 kilos. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Even if you think, oh, I can do 60 kilos comfortably on my lat pull down machine, the one that I use regularly, try to go heavier, okay? Be ready to lift heavier weights, because it could happen that on the day you find that it's harder than you expected, okay? Next one, please, Lisa. Okay, so the other strength test that we are using is shoulder press from a dead-on position. So as you see, it's only the arms doing the movement. There is no, knee drive. The person is not bending the knees. It's purely the upper body lifting the weight overhead. So you'll be required to lift 35 kilos for 1 rep. Okay, starting from that position where you see on the picture to your left. So the barbell needs to start below your chin. So it doesn't necessarily need to rest on your shoulders. You can just hold it slightly above that. If you don't have the flexibility for it, that's totally fine. So from that position, I'll give you the command to press. And at that point, using only the arms, okay, without thrusting with your hips or knees, you need to press that weight overhead. Then you hold it overhead for a couple of seconds, and then we'll ask you to bring the barbell back down to your shoulders, and that will be the end of the test. Here, we're only doing 1 rep at 35 kilos. We're not doing many reps, half of that way like we did with the lat pull down. Only once, 35 kilos, that's it, okay? You'll get a couple of attempts on the day. So, if you get nervous, maybe the first rep, you don't quite get it, don't worry, you get another attempt on the day, okay? Practice the test, you get used to maybe do it in front of a mirror if you can, just to make sure that you're not using your knees or anything like that. That's the most common mistake that I see is people getting nervous on the day, and all of a sudden they just lift the weight very quickly by using the legs a little bit. And seriously, on the day will be very straight. We cannot see any movement on your leg or lower body. So I'm seeing just popping out a question here. It's 35 kilos total. So that would be a 20 kilos barbell, Olympic barbell. And then we have 12, 5. So it will be, 7.5 on each side. Sorry, 5 on 5. 7.5 on each side. So 35 kilos total. So for some of you, maybe 35 doesn't look like much, but if you never tried before, it might be worth just giving it a go. Some people might find out that naturally they can lift that way easily, but some people might struggle a little bit. So if that's the case, again, go to our website, check out the programs that we got available for you, and hopefully you will be able to get in there. And I think that's it, right, Luisa? Do we have any other slides? No, okay, brilliant. So now I will handle the mic. In this case, we're not using a mic really, but to Paul Smith, station manager. He's from Learning and Development. He'll be talking to you about the NFS test that we run upon completion of the fitness test. Thank you, everyone. I'll answer the questions right away. Just give me a second.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm unmuted. As Manuel said, my name is Paul Smith, and I'm a station manager in operational training. So I'm here to talk to you about the practical physical tests that you'll be carrying out as part of your as part of the recruitment process. But before I start on that, I just wanted to have a brief chat about what I've got out of my career and why I've enjoyed working for Avon Fire and Rescue Service so much. Although I'm in training now, I was operational for 26 years on the appliances as a firefighter, crew manager and watch manager, working across different stations and teams and different watches. And it's been absolutely fantastic working as part of a team, with spending so much time with people, more time than your family members, really. They become like your family, and you make lifelong friends, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So from going through training school and learning the basics of being a firefighter, honing your core skills, breathing apparatus, ladders, pumping, RTC, car accidents, and then going on to station and growing and learning and bettering myself, taking on driving, and eventually building yourself up to sit in front of the fire engine, having to make incident command decisions, and just continually pushing and learning new things. As Steve said earlier, it's taken me all around it's taken me as well all around the country, meeting like-minded people, and it's been a great journey. and it all boils down to helping people on their worst possible, the worst day of their lives, and making that real difference, not just with your actions, but with your attitude and your interactions with them, and they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. So right, back on topic. Practical physical tests that you'll be encountering as part of the recruitment process. I'm not going to dwell on too long individually, because all of these are on the Yes You Can section of the Avon Fire and Rescue Service website. There's videos to each test, so I'll briefly go through them. If people have got any questions, I'll answer them at the end. And then once we've gone through the test, there's some hints and tips to pass on that I'll talk through, where you can hopefully better your chances of being successful. So the first one we're going to talk about is the equipment carry test, which is a time test, doing as it says, carrying various pieces of equipment through a course and following instruction. Do you want to next slide, please, Louisa? So the equipment assembly test is a logical test to check in on you how you're going to follow instruction. So you'll watch a video, you'll have some hints and cards to follow to help you through the process, and it's just how you're going to follow instruction and follow simple tasks. It'll be a piece of fire service equipment that you'll be asked to assemble, and again, it will be against a time under test conditions. Again, the video on it explaining the test in more detail on the Yes You Can website. Next slide, please, Louisa. And the confined space test. Now this can be a little bit of a new experience to people that may not have come across this sort of situation before. It can be a bit disorientating, but again, it's important just to follow the instruction on the day. You'll be dressed in fire kit, a BA set, although you'll be breathing clean air, and you'll have your vision obscured as well. So it can be a little disorientating, but you enter a crawl way and then follow a crawl space where you'll be required to go up, down, left, right, dropping yourself through the maze to reach the other side, again in a test environment against the clock. Important on all of these to listen to the instructions carefully, and the trainers, the instructors are there to help you. Any questions, make sure you're asking. It's not there to catch you out, but say this one can be a little bit of a challenge. Next slide, please, Louisa. Ladder climb, pretty much does what it says on the tin, really. 135 ladder pitched against the training tower. You'll follow instruction on the correct way of climbing the ladder. Climb to 2/3 of the height where there's a marker on the ladder. Take a leg lock, which again may be new to you, may not be something you've done before, and then you'll be told to lean back and identify a symbol on the ground. As with the others, video explaining it in more detail on the site. And the last test, I believe, is the casualty evacuation test, which is a 55 kilo dummy, and you'll be instructed to do a dummy drag, following the instructor around a series of cones. And I believe that's the one. So, as I've said, a lot of these are following instructions. So it's really important to listen to the guidance you're being given. Make sure you're asking any questions. If you need clarification on the day, it's a lot of information to take in. So don't be frightened to ask. It's really important to remember that we're all there to help you. We want you to be successful. So make sure you're you're not shy in coming forward and putting yourself in the best position you can to be successful. Stay calm. The crawl space, I would say, especially if you feel uncomfortable or you're not quite sure of how you're going to progress, best ask. Admit you've made a mistake and what you're going to do to correct it, and work as hard as you can. You are against the clock. You're going to be working, if you're successful, in a physically and mentally demanding environments. It's really important that you show us that you can work as hard as you can listen to instruction and carry out them safely and effectively. Equipment carry. Historically, we've had some people struggling with their grip. So as with the physical test that Manuel's just spoken about, it's all on the website, your expectations on the day. So prepare as best you can. And with these equipment carries, do some farmers walks, which, if anyone who don't know, is carrying, doing a loaded carry for up to about 100 meters, just to improve your grip strength, because you don't want to be failing on the day for something that you could have practiced in advance. Don't panic in the crawlway, which I've spoken about. And like I said, we're all rooting for you. We want you to do well. So give it your best shot, prepare as well you can, and hopefully you'll be successful. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Paul. We're going to stop recording now, and then I'm just going to go to Chris Carruthers, but I just want to